Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday, and I missed you guys. I've been gone for a couple of days as Omari was getting some great scoop, and we're so happy that he was able to get an in-depth interview with Councilmember Juarez. You guys know I got to throw it over to my guy, Big O. Been on the scene since the day before days. Hi, Big O. How are you? Happy Thursday, my friend.
Yeah, been on the scene. I'm just trying to get some sleep. I'll be honest with you. I have an hour worth of sleep last night. But hey, like they used to tell me back in college radio, WRVS, when the light goes red, man, you got to get ready to go. So happy Thursday to you, Treyana. And like you said, the interview that we did with Councilmember Deborah Juarez, man, it's got a lot of traction. It's a lot of people checking that out. And actually, I was on Cairo FM this morning with Dave Ross and Hannah Scott talking about that interview and a few other things, including the protest. But yeah, we missed you too. Mm-hmm. And next time, man, you gotta be there. You bring that very special black girl magic to everything you do.
Oh, I got you, man. You tell me, give me the word, I'm there, bro.
All right, so we got a lot of stuff today, and also today we've got Patrice Bell. She is from the Northwest African American Museum, and she's going to be talking about NAAM and what NAAM is all about, and also the occupation that's occurring out there. We've heard from Omari Tahir quite a few times on the show, and so now we're actually going to hear from the Northwest African American Museum. That's what our community would expect from us.
That's right.
Yeah, right. So we don't have enough time in this show to go in depth on everything that happened last night. I'm trying to put a show together for later on today. Not even just last night, but protests in general. But and you can leave the channel open here, Daryl. This is just a very short clip from outside the Washington State Patrol Seattle headquarters. There was a candlelight vigil. It started off as a vigil out there at the State Patrol. You can play the clip, please. And the police and the Washington State Patrol gave an order to disperse. There was the car brigade was there.
Now here they are, and they're pushing people back. Here's the pushback. Here's the push. The mace is out. The mace is out.
Quite a bit of mace. I ain't ate the gas. I ain't ate the mace in a minute, but yeah, definitely got maced up last night, and covering this story. I've seen a lot of different protests. I think one of the problems that we see here in Seattle is that protests or vigils or demonstrations, a lot of people bundle them all into one package. And from what we witnessed there, this isn't a group that came to tear stuff up and things like that. And because we've actually seen that as well. But man, like I said, it's a lot to talk about, and we don't have the time in this show to talk about it. But basically, you can see, the best thing about the live stream is that you can go to our Converge Media YouTube page. It's a 44-minute stream, it's uninterrupted. You're more than welcome to mute me and turn turn my sound down. But some people already do that. Like, yeah, I like his camera work, but I'm not for his commentary. But see for yourself. I think that's the best thing that I could say right here as to like what's really happening here in Seattle around protests. I mean, and just like even right now, there's the morning march that's occurring. The morning march is known for picking up trash in neighborhoods. They march, they beat their drum, they pick up trash. You got other marchers who go, they do vigils. You got another group that's direct action. You got another. So I mean, it's just a lot of stuff that's going on out there. But yeah, it got. I reserved the word funky. I won't say it got all the way funky last night, but man, it definitely got interesting. And unfortunately, one of the biggest casualties is the new Converge jacket that I had. It was a nice brand new one, man. It's all orange. They hit me with the orange last night.
Aww.
So we'll see if it washes out. The website says it does. We'll see if that happens. But yesterday, I wanted to talk about like these protests and right here in Seattle and other parts of America is that we see that like this voice, it's not going away. And whether here in Seattle or either nationally, if we continue to treat the symptoms and not the disease, then the symptoms will continue. And what we see out here in the streets in Seattle and across America, and now what we're seeing even yesterday across the sports leagues and everything else. These are the symptoms. And so people are like, okay, well, man, how do we treat the symptom? And when you talk about here in Seattle, they're like, well, policing should do this. And I'm not even talking about structural policing. I'm talking about ground level. Should the police arrest like this, or should the police let these guys do, march or protest here? Should they tow a car or not tow a car? That's symptoms. I really don't feel that there's enough bold conversations that are occurring here, at least publicly, that talk about, the disease. I mean, everybody has their prescription. So you've got, community organizations have their prescription, City Hall prescription, the mayor talks about her prescription and everything else. But it's like, a lot of these messages, they're not penetrating clearly. Because if they were, people wouldn't still be in the streets.
Right, and this is exactly why, like you said, people are still out there. Again, fighting for what we are calling systemic change means a real overhaul of the system, and what you're talking about is the perpetuator of all of these things that now have become like systemic. What we need to do is really figure out the roots of those things so we can uproot them. And I think that there's a lot of people who are wanting to do that, and a lot to pressing for that change.
Well, this is the thing too, is it the average Seattleite is all for that. I'm going to take a leap out there and say the average Seattleite is all for that. There is a lot of direction, though, very far left and very far right about this issue that's very polarizing. And these are people are getting drawn more and more into that. And, if we continue, we talk about it all the time, man, we can't paint all of this with a broad brush. Right. And what's happening in a lot of media on the left and on the right, who I don't think are very representative of the average person. The average person in Seattle is like, you know what, let's figure this out. They haven't hopped on a bandwagon to where all police are one thing or all protesters are another. The average person in Seattle is like, man, how do we see our way through this? And really, I think that's probably who really needs to be heard from more is the everyday people that are out there. Because if not, we're going to see our city just totally, get torn apart by the fringes, to be honest with you. If the reasonable people in this city stay quiet, it's going to get torn apart by the fringe elements on both sides. And the thing is when you talk to the fringes on both sides, their complaints are really about the same, which is really odd, man. The system doesn't work. These people are this, those people are that. So, I mean, the masses of the people, the majority of the people in the city are people who I don't think want to be directed by just a narrative or something like that.
Right.
There's one other thing I want to bring up as well, and we're gonna have a discussion. I want to have an in-depth discussion with a lot of different people. We're gonna put a show together here about, what's going on with the protesters and with media and force and all these other things. But I got a message this morning. It was like, man, if I was you, I'd go on your show this morning mad as hell about X, Y, and Z and everything else. And that's a valid point. But I'm out there. I'm a journalist, and we covering these things. But the biggest thing, and I've been through a lot out here. But the biggest thing is that there's a lot of people watching this show, but the most important people watching this show are my children. And it's always good to set the best example, man. As adversity happens, press reset at midnight. Wake up with a positive and mental attitude and face the day. Does that mean I'm a pushover? No. Does it mean I'm, a pacifist? No. But it does mean that, my life is also bigger than this. And, I'm responsible. And, this is when character counts, when you're on camera. This is when your character counts, and it needs to come through when the public is dependent upon you to be able to tell a story to the best of your capabilities. And like I said, the most important people watching me are my children, who I want to continue to set the best example for here while I'm on air. And hopefully they ain't watching the streams and hear me curse.
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head, honestly. And just the other day, I went over clips with my son because he doesn't get to watch the show. And I wanted him to understand some of the work his mom really is doing around this movement, around this narrative. There's so many different polarizing views. And I think America is even seeing that we're losing that center. We're losing that center voice. And it is important to hear from the average person who can kind of see both sides and who really just wants change as well.
Yeah,
But, you know, again, I think you're right that there's a wide variety of voices in this. And it'd be great to hear from people and actually dedicate a show to that.
There's hardly any police chief, sheriff, mayor, city council, or reputable community group in our country that doesn't say that we can do better to have a better country for everybody. You know what I'm saying? That's one thing everybody's on the same page with. But man, so we got quite a few clips here, and yesterday was a big day in sports, you know, and also included our Mariners right here. And we'll start with this clip when we got the news. This is from King 5 yesterday. This is that the Mariners, well, actually, let me take a step back. The NBA, teams in the NBA first said that they weren't going to play yesterday. And now the Lakers and the Clippers are saying they're done for the whole season. They're not going to play at all. But this was a clip right here from King 5 yesterday talking about the Mariners boycott yesterday of the game with the Padres.
And as we mentioned, the sports world is headed to the sidelines tonight, boycotting games as a call for justice. Our Chris Egan joins us live now. So, Chris, this started with the Milwaukee Bucks, and it's now spreading to other teams, right?
Yeah, Mark, started with the NBA, the Milwaukee Brewers and Reds, first of the Major League Baseball teams to cancel their game tonight. And within the hour, players from the Mariners have reportedly voted to not play their game tonight against the Padres in San Diego. So no Mariners game tonight. And the WNBA has also decided to not play tonight. Both are following the lead of the NBA.
So yeah, it was basically a domino effect yesterday across all like pro sports, including the WNBA. The WNBA said they were in solidarity with the NBA, and there was also a player from the WNBA who opted out the season altogether before the season started, saying that the work on social justice was much more important. So M's didn't play yesterday, NBA didn't play yesterday, WNBA didn't play yesterday, and this all kind of started around the Milwaukee Bucks. And of course, you know, Milwaukee is in Wisconsin, so is Kenosha, where the shooting of Jacob Blake happened 7 times in the back. This was the statement that the Milwaukee Bucks made yesterday prior to them basically boycotting the game.
Our team statement, the past 4 months have shed a light on the ongoing racial injustices facing our African American community. Citizens around the country have used their voices and platforms to speak out against these wrongdoings. Over the last few days in our home state of Wisconsin, we've seen the horrendous video of Jacob Blake being shot in the back 7 times by a police officer in Kenosha, and the additional shooting of protesters. Despite the overwhelming plea for change, there has been no action, so our focus today cannot be on basketball.
When we take the court and represent Milwaukee and Wisconsin, we are expected to play at a high level, give maximum effort, and hold each other accountable. We hold ourselves to that standard, and in this moment, we are demanding the same from lawmakers and law enforcement. We are calling for justice for Jacob Blake and demand the officers be held accountable. For this to occur, it is imperative for the Wisconsin State Legislature to reconvene after months of inaction and take up meaningful measures to address issues of police accountability, brutality, and criminal justice reform. We encourage all citizens to educate themselves, take peaceful and responsible action, and remember to vote on November 3rd on behalf of the Milwaukee Bucks.
So that was the Milwaukee Bucks right there. They came out, they made a statement yesterday, basically saying that, man, they wasn't playing. And also calling upon their state legislature to come back in and to act, you know. And you know, domino effect from there. And also didn't just impact basketball players. Kenny Smith. He's beloved as a player and now has been a commentator for years on TNT. Kenny Smith walked off the set yesterday.
Kenny. This is tough. I mean, right now my head is like ready to explode, like just in the thoughts of what's going on. And I don't know if I'm even appropriate enough to say it, what the players are feeling and how they're feeling. And I haven't talked to any of the players. I'm just like coming in, even like driving here and getting into the studio, hearing calls and people talking. And for me, I think the biggest thing now is to kind of, as a black man, as a former player, I think it's best for me to support the players and just not be here tonight. And figure out what happens after that. I just don't feel equipped to do that.
And I respect that.
All right, so that was Kenny Smith from TNT. Walked off the set. He said that he was standing in solidarity with the NBA players. But, you know, like I said, as a community, we're not all monolithic here. Stephen A. Smith, known for being fairly controversial, but Stephen A. Smith had a different take on the players boycotting or ending the season.
The season.
I absolutely do not agree with them. As a matter of fact, I'll go so far as to say that their position has been foolish as far as I'm concerned. I respect the fact that I want to make sure that I'm clear about this. I am not talking about if you're not going back to work because of the coronavirus. I totally understand that. If you choose to make that decision for the well-being of yourself and your family members who you are near, then obviously that has a profound impact, and I totally respect and understand that. But that's not what Kyrie Irving and Dwight Howard are talking about. What they're talking about is because of the protests that have been taking place in the streets throughout America, particularly what happened this weekend with Rashard Brooks, particularly what happened with George Floyd and things of that nature. Because of that, that's the reason why we shouldn't be going to work. We should be focusing on these things. Well, I'm sorry, if that's a reason not to go to work, black folks wouldn't have been employed for centuries now.
Wow. Let me just first off say that, come on, America. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. I got to give it up because honestly, my son is an athlete, and when we can see certain people stepping up to the plate, that this system actually works for them, right? They made it out, right? They made it either out of their hood or whatever different circumstances. Finances may be good for them because they're professional players. They're professionals on TV. They have this idea that people think is that's what success looks like, and even they can stand up and say, you know what, we're done with this. We're not doing this anymore. We cannot no longer actually bite into this system. We gotta stop what we're doing, everybody, because change is necessary in order for this country to move forward. So I just had to say that. I had to give him one big clap because for me, from the community, you know it was. Every clip that you were showing, I'm like, come on, man, let me loose. But honestly, the truth is that I am so honored to be living in this moment where we see people utilize their platform for something that is going to hopefully really create some sustainable, systemic change. All I can say is I am very thrilled for that as a mother of sons who looks up to athletes, and as a mother and a black woman in this country. I applaud all of them. And Stephen A. Smith, he is worth having his own opinion, but I just gotta say that I applaud them all. I am giving them a round of applause. And as they would say on Living Color, 3 snaps in the Z formation. Yes.
Man, why you take us all the way back though? It's in Living Color.
Had to do it, man.
Wow. Well, you know, I think that people should understand as well that that's why we say that this conversation, all this stuff is not going anywhere. You know, I mean, these are just new symptoms that keep popping up, and people aren't realizing that. And that if we just look for the solution to be how are things handled on a street level, you know, or is this person a protester or that person or this or that, man, that's like the micro view.
Yeah.
You know, when you've got the LA Lakers and the LA Clippers voting to cancel their whole season, it's like, yeah, it's no longer important to them anymore. And what they're finding is what's important to them is actually what's happening right now, you know, in America. And speaking of that, so I wanted to be able, I found, this is like a 3-minute clip here from Yahoo News. And it talks about, it just highlights some black athletes throughout history here in America who have been politically involved or politically activated. Just wanted to be able to give our viewing audience some context that, you know, when people might say shut up and dribble or something like that, that it's a long history of activism around pro athletics.
The black athlete using their platform to protest racism has always been met with vitriol. No matter the amount of success on the court or respect fans held for them as a player, that respect very often did not follow them off the field of play. Bill Russell, an active voice in the civil rights movement, is one of the most successful and intellectually brilliant men alive. But in 1963, after he'd won 2 NCAA championships, an Olympic gold medal, and 6 NBA championships in Boston, vandals broke into his home, shit on his bed, and smeared it on the walls. LeBron James has been very vocal about the black experience in America, and the N-word was sprayed across his home in 2017.
You know, being black in America is tough, and we got a long way to go.
In 1968, Tommy Smith and John Carlos raised their fists after winning gold and bronze, representing the U.S. They were immediately suspended and came home to death threats. Colin Kaepernick kneeled in protest out of respect for the wishes of an Army vet, and not only received death threats, but hasn't had an opportunity to play football since.
I have family, I have friends that have gone and fought for this country, and they fight for freedom. They fight for the people, they fight for liberty and justice for everyone, and that's not happening.
It has been around 50 years between the older and more current events, and the responses are shockingly similar. A lot has changed, but a lot hasn't. That's why Drew Brees' comments weren't just considered tone deaf, they're disturbing.
And when I look at the flag of the United States, I envision my 2 grandfathers who fought for this country during World War II.
He selfishly amplified his personal feelings, putting them before his black counterparts' actual realities, as well as ignoring the 1.2 million black soldiers that served alongside his grandparents, who came home and weren't allowed to enjoy the same rights they risked their own lives to uphold. This lack of understanding is at the root of today's civil unrest. The great, peaceful Martin Luther King was quite possibly the most hated man in America prior to being assassinated. And he once said, "Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will." He also said, "A riot is the language of the unheard." So like Malcolm Jenkins pointedly stated,
but sometimes you should shut the f*** up
and start listening. And based on what we've seen throughout the nation, people have started to listen. All 50 states have been involved in protests. Company leaders are having the uncomfortable conversations that have been avoided for too long. This time feels different, but let's make sure to keep this same energy when the dust settles. Let's make sure this isn't a trend, but just the beginning of long-term change. Let's make sure black voices can still be heard without black lives being lost as a catalyst.
Wow, that's a great clip right there. And again, I love being able to put certain things in context for our audience. This is a fight that we see has continued on from generation to generation. And I think what we're really seeing right now is a true precipice of like folks being like, look, this stuff has been boiling over. We're now at this tipping point that we can no longer accept this. And you're seeing it in a swell of people now coming out. Like you said earlier, this domino effect is real. And it's, to be honest, it's invigorating to someone like me who is really like, let's press and press and press for something new and change. And I think you're right that many people here in the Emerald City believe that we can step up, we can do something different, we can create a system that is more equity based and that actually cares for all the people in this country. So I'm just happy to see that. I'm happy to see that context.
Right. And I mean, I think that, you know, clearly with actions taken by these professional athletes and professional leagues and everything else, the spotlight, the conversation, whatever you're gonna call it, is definitely gonna get bigger. Yeah. Right here in the Emerald City and across America. And I think people should probably also, people are thinking that what's going on is just people in the streets.
Right.
Right? And people who you might see, like in Seattle, on the everyday march, or the morning march, or this rally, or whatever. I don't think people probably take into consideration like organization that you work with, in that you guys, you do events, you know what I'm saying, a lot of them are in the community, but I don't think I've ever seen you on an everyday march or a morning march or a direct action march or anything. Right. But you're continuously, your work now at King County Equity now, what you guys are doing is, I mean, it's the protest is there. What I'm trying to say is that this protest that's occurring is dynamic. Yeah. The streets is just one place where people are seeing a manifestation of people being vocal about it. There's protests happening on a legislative level, on a policy level, and everything else. And we do ourselves a disservice. The citizen stakeholders of our city do ourselves a disservice not to be fully engaged into what's going on here and what the conversations are here, and to just be guided by clickbait headlines and everything else. You know, we need to be accountable in our city. I mean, and you know, it's fine if leaders won't lead. That's, you know, I mean, we can't make that an excuse either. If leadership can't emerge in a dynamic level, then, you know, it just means that it was absent. And then again, we as the citizen stakeholders need to really get more involved in our city. But I want people to really understand that this issue isn't going anywhere. You might be able, there might be a symptom that you're able to treat, you know, maybe protests aren't on the streets, but the disease remains. That's what I'm saying. We need to be bold enough to go after the disease, the cause. And like I said, on the local level, on the national level, everybody agrees that there are issues here in this country. You won't find people who won't say that we can't be a better nation. And so, you know, it's gonna be up to us though, right here in our city, in this municipality, what we're gonna do as the citizen stakeholders to make that change and also bring some civility and some humanity back to the conversation. Did a lot of national clips there from ESPN, TNT, Yahoo News, but you know, we some local guys, so we had to keep it local as well. Reached out to Marcus Harrison Green. He always makes me say all three names. The publisher of the South Seattle Emerald. I talked to him last night on his thoughts of what was occurring yesterday with the pro players boycotting the games.
Sports is an imperfect parallel to life, but I mean, it's enough of an approximation. And I think you see with sports, you see how it started out in the in the 50s and 60s, and in terms of the Black folks just even being allowed into sports. So I'm saying somebody like a Jackie Robinson, when we thought that progress was just representation, just get in the door and just be there and be quiet. And then, you bump it up to, 80s, 90s, you have the Magic Johnsons, Michael Jordans, who, progresses to, okay, you can be at the top of the pinnacle, you can, transcend race, you can essentially be treated like a white person if you stay within these bounds. And if you don't get too controversial, and if you don't say certain things. And then it's like, man, that's not enough, right? And we find out that that's not enough. Like, we found out representation was not enough. And now you have this generation who was like, no, I mean, we still have the multi-million-dollar contracts and we have all of that, but guess what? We're going to continue to say what we have to say. And, we're not going to be treated as, I forget the name of the author who did the book, but he said, I'm not going to be treated like $100 million slaves, meaning that because you feel that I make this amount of money, that you want to muffle my voice. And I think that is a parallel, to be quite frank with you, a lot of the Black community in terms of its thought process and its thinking about how we make advancement, going from just representation and being a Black face in a high place to actually, when we get there, using our voice and using our real authentic voice.
I just gotta say, shout out to you, Marcus Harrison Green. I think that what he just did there was laid out a really great understanding of how this progression has been happening. I loved what he was just saying, a Black face in a high place. It is so true. And this is what I utilize a lot of our celebrities and pro athletes to showcase. Look, when they think, oh, well, we have the Jay-Z's, Beyonce's, the LeBrons of the world. Look at Oprah Winfrey. They got all this money. Unfortunately, that trickle down isn't happening. And what we really see in statistics is that Black home ownership is down, education is down. Literally across the board, Black families are still at the bottom. Native families are still at the very bottom. We have to address those concerns. And one of the things you said earlier before going to Marcus's clip in regards to the citizens being informed and understanding, the players that be in their city, I think it's so, so true. If you look at, the work of like a King County Equity Now, if you look on that website, it showcases that this is an 18-year-old campaign. The reason why is because these groups have been doing this work for many years. This isn't something new, and I think that we point to that a lot with regard to kind of the protest movement, bringing a lot of these works and a lot of these organizations to the surface, but they've been on the ground. They've been laying the groundwork, trying to figure out how to get legislation and policy passed so that these equitable moments can actually happen and be written into law. There's a lot of work that's been done, and it's great to be able to now uplift that, and I think there's a lot of places for our citizens, particularly here in the Emerald City, to be educated on that. So I agree with this all around. Great job, Marcus.
Marcus Harrison Green, you can catch him at southseattleemerald.com. And yeah, it's just important. Like I said, I think the majority of people that live in our city are just reasonable people. I bump into them all the time. And they're just people who call it like they see it. And they're people who, like anybody else, make mistakes, work hard, but you have to be involved. And the voids that we're seeing in leadership and across our city, citizens just gonna have to step it up. That's just what it's gonna be, because like I said, if we don't, we're very well on a path to be ripped apart as a city and, do irreprehensible harm to who we are as Seattleites if we let these overarching narratives rule the day. We got to get, I guess, what they call a trigger warning, and I understood but didn't understand it until I started really covering this and all the stuff that we see in real life, and then you see something here in a video. There's a video right here. This is the shooter in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And, it's graphic. You don't really see literally, it's somebody shooting their gun. And we'll come back with it right after and talk more about it. But just want to let you know that some viewers might find this very disturbing. So we'll go ahead and play this clip now.
He just shot them. Hey, dude right here just shot them. Dude right here just shot all them down there. That dude just shot them right there. That dude right here. Yeah. Get
That's TV station KSDK. Footage right there from Kenosha, Wisconsin. And what we saw right there is the shooter, it turns out to be 17 years old and was in illegal possession of that firearm. But the shooter shot 2 people who ended up dying there, wounded another one, and then walks up to the police. There's people screaming there. You heard him on the tape say, hey, this guy just shot somebody. This guy just shot. And actually, in the beginning of the clip, he had tripped, and you see he stands up, turns back around, shoots some more. Then he walks towards the police. He's got the gun out there. You can see the gun. People are yelling like, this is the guy that just killed somebody. You even see him kind of putting his hands up almost in a sense like, hey, you know, it was me. Don't shoot me. Don't whatever. Police just roll right by. And then nobody stopped him. He got in the car. He left the state.
Nobody stopped him?
No, man. I mean, he's under arrest now. I believe it's first-degree murder. But this is what we be talking about. Is like, it's just if this dude was black coming through like that, if it was some Arab dude or anything else, you know what I'm saying? If to do all of that, like if this was a different neighborhood and these were white people over there yelling like, hey, this guy just murdered somebody, and he's just walking down there with his assault rifle and everything, and the police are like, yeah, good stuff. I mean, these are the kind of things though, you know, and this is exactly in the same city where Jacob Blake got shot 7 times in the back.
With no weapon in his hand.
Man, and these are the things right here. When people feel that this conversation is gonna go away, when people feel it's whatever, I mean, you know.
I gotta say it, man. I mean, first of all, you're making all the right points. Second of all, we saw it right here in our city. We saw somebody be able to drive their car through protesters, shoot someone, and walk into the arms of the police force, a white man. Once again, you can't even make this stuff up. You can't even make this stuff up. And one of the things that that was a news station there that was able to capture that. It is insane, the stuff that we're getting on video now that's really showcasing what so many Americans have lived with day in and day out. And it is this same old, age-old system. You guys, come on now. We all need to wake up. We cannot allow this to continue in our country. And I don't understand how anybody can see these kind of proliferation of these kinds of clips and think that we're okay as Americans. We definitely need reform.
And like I said, I think it's bold leadership everywhere. You know, people, the same people who are like, oh, well, you know, Jacob, Blake might have had. Now they're saying he might have had a knife in the floorboard of his car. Are the same people who are quiet now about this shooter.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's just like, man, come on. You know, if we really have expectation of a better country, then like, man, we just gotta put it all the way out there. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just what it is.
That's right.
People are so tied to their narrative. I mean, it's crazy. But you know, this is also something, if there wasn't video, people probably wouldn't believe it. If you were sitting there and be like, yo, man, it was crazy. Dude was shooting people, and then like, man, he walked up to the police, had his hands up and everything, and then kept walking, and then got in his car and left the state. Nobody would believe you. You lying.
Right,
You
right.
know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying. You cannot make this stuff up. I mean, that is as a storyteller, I'm just like, that series of events, the same when I heard about the guy driving through the park. I mean, when you hear this stuff, it's very hard for me to hear this and then think, oh yeah, no, we're fine. You know, we can continue on. No way, man. Not for my kids, not for yours, I don't believe. They deserve better.
Yeah, no, it's a wild one. So next up here, this was actually a few days ago. There's a short clip as well from King 5, where the OPA has stepped in, and there's a sergeant in the Seattle Police Department who has, I think the word is suspended or has been removed from duty. This clip actually went around the world. It's right there at Cal Anderson Park, where the officer drives his SUV up on the sidewalk and then calls protesters cockroaches, something like that. This is from King 5. This is, I believe, 2 days ago.
A Seattle police officer has been placed on paid leave. The Office of Police Accountability says on August 13th, it received this video showing the officer to appear to drive up onto the sidewalk and call people in the crowd roaches. This is the video as it appeared on social media. The entire incident is now under investigation.
All right. And so under investigation, OPA, I'm sure they got a lot of stuff on their around May 30th, I believe they got like 12 or 13,000 complaints just in like a 1 week period or less there. So last night at the Republican convention, South Dakota Governor NAAM went in on Democrats running super liberal cities. We'll play the clip for you, but NAAM called out Seattle by name and said that, mobs are running the city and crime is rampant and everything else. Mayor Durkin wasted no time with her clapback on the Rachel Maddow show. It looks like just minutes after the speech ended. Go ahead and play this clip for us.
If we continue down the path taken by the Democrats and their radical supporters, from Seattle and Portland to Washington and New York, Democrat-run cities across this country are being overrun by violent mobs. The violence is rampant. There's looting, chaos, destruction, and murder. People that can afford to flee have fled, but the people that can't, good, hardworking Americans, are left to fend for themselves.
So thank you for letting me respond. I will say one thing. She is very right about one thing, and that is our values are at stake: equality, freedom, and opportunity. And unfortunately, this president does not stand for any of those values. And her caricature of the great cities across America is not only wrong, it's purposefully wrong. I think she needs to get off Twitter and get off Fox News and come see our city.
Yep, so Mayor Durkin right there, she didn't waste any time, like I said, with the clap back on the South Dakota governor. This is, yeah.
Yeah, this is one of those things where, again, what we keep talking about are these polarizing narratives, right? From the left and right. It has become so politically charged that ultimately the one thing that I care about the most is that we actually have some real change that's going to affect people in America. Like, at the end of the day, I think the politicians going back and forth with one another, we've seen this. We know it's an election year. We know that also brings on more charge around politics because it's so, right now, the climate that we're in, so many people have so many things to say about Trump. But ultimately, we see that it is local municipalities, it is local authorities that really these cities and these people are pressing against. And so once again, I think that, it's important that we make sure that all of that kind of political discourse doesn't end there, that it actually brings down to some real systemic change. That's what I can say about that, because I'm used to these guys going back and forth.
Man, Seattle, like a lot of major cities right now, man, it's facing a lot of issues. I just think, like, when we talk about the broad brush, this is broad brush, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It sounds like Mad Max over here or something, I mean, and I've been out there, and there's especially, people in Capitol Hill neighborhood, man. I know they feel some kind of way about the protests and everything that's going on, and so you can't dismiss neighborhoods that are impacted by the protests, and Cap Hill has definitely been one. The main one, but then on the flip side, to say that like a whole city, 88 square miles of a city is like, out of control and gangs roaming. Anyways, last clip right here, and I wanted to bring this up because this is the farmers market. You don't have it? Oh, okay, you don't have it. All right. Well, I'll just talk about it real quick before we go to break. There's a farmers market that's right there on Rainier Avenue South, right across from the Burger King. Mm-hmm. And I bring this up because, man, they've been hit by arson like 4 times now. And, a lot of our community members, that's where they go and get their fresh fruit. you know, and everything right there. So we just wanted to bring some awareness around that. We'll play that clip for you tomorrow. Because I mean, one, like, man, burning down this guy's business, and I think there's arson is on the rise. You know, there's construction sites being burned down, there's this guy's fruit stand being burned down, and everything else. And nobody anywhere, I just want to clarify, no one is saying that this is connected to the pro. There's a totally separate story about the fruit stand right there on Rainier, where Rainier Avenue South and 23rd intersect. I hope that he brings his business back. He said that it's been burnt like 4 times. Because again, that's where people in our community go get fresh fruit.
Well, you just said it too, that, you know, that's been a stand that's been there for a very long time. I think my entire childhood, I knew that stand was there. And ultimately, what it's providing is something that really isn't around in the area. Fresh fruit and vegetables. Literally, there's some areas in our city that are technically food deserts. And where he is specifically is one of them. So I'm glad that we can uplift that and show that clip tomorrow.
And we'll air that tomorrow. We're going to take a short break right now. I know we went super long in this first segment, but it's an important conversation that we're having. When we come back, also an important conversation with Patrice Bell. She is from the Northwest African American Museum. You are watching the Morning Update Show.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents.
As a small independent media company, we rely on the financial support of individuals and business members to stay on the front lines of the news that's important to you.
There's a lot going on. Are you ready? Ready to feel better, look better, be better? Drink water. Be ready for a pickup game. Insta-frame to work hard towards your aim. Drink water. Hydrate. Hydrate to invest in yourself. Cut down on sugar. Invest in your health. Imagine the possibilities and reach your potential. Who knows what's next? Be ready. Be hydrated.
All right, I guess we got a little echo there. Welcome back to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Omari Salisbury, and right now we are joined by Patrice Bell of the Northwest African American Museum. Those of us in the neighborhood know it as NAAM. Welcome to the Morning Update Show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right, we're excited to have you. Definitely have some questions to ask you about what's going on right there. We've got some people occupying the front of the building, but we'll get to that. First, I wanted to give you an opportunity, though, to really tell the community, our community, but then Seattle as a whole. It's a lot of people watch this show from across the city. What exactly is the Northwest African American Museum?
So NAAM is a museum, first of all, but it's a community space. It's a place, our mission is to spread knowledge, understanding, and enjoyment of the arts, histories, and cultures of Black people. And that's really at the core of everything that we do. From our exhibitions that come in, we have a lot of local artists that come through and display their art, do wonderful shows, do programming around their shows, public programming. We make a point to make things accessible to our community that never would have been. We had a beautiful show with the Seattle Opera, $35. Where are you going to the opera for $35? NAAM, that's where. So, and we also do a lot of partnering and programs to make sure that people are centering Black voices. And at the base level, that's what NAAM is.
Right, I was going to ask you, like, what's the overarching vision and mission of NAAM?
Yes, absolutely. So it's to educate. At the root of everything is to educate and make sure that people are enjoying the culture and art of Black people. We are mainly focused on African Americans, but we do focus widely on the African diaspora. So there is a lot of content there because we are not a monolithic people. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of art. There are a lot of activities, and so that's what NAAM does. We try to cover it all.
Right, and now you mentioned partnership. Maybe you can talk about some of the organizations or groups that you guys partner with.
Absolutely. So we like to partner with local Black organizations, but if there's not a Black organization who supplies what we need, we try to keep things local. So we do a lot of events with Elliott Bay. So when we have an event and a speaker, we make sure that we have books to give out to the attendees from Elliott Bay. We have partnerships with Youth Care, YWCA, so we actually bring in interns so they get paid, making sure that they're getting paid to come in and build up their resumes, getting real work experience, and being in a space that's comfortable. I know with the Youth Care program, which is still fairly new, it was a concern of, I want to send our queer Black youth into a space where I know they're safe, where I know they can be developed without having to take on this burden of what happens in corporate America. So.
Right. Now, we have a few pictures here that I guess we'll put up on the screen, and you can maybe give us some description.
Awesome.
See if we'll get them over there. Go ahead and put up the first one there, Daryl. So what are we looking at right here?
This is actually from a 2011 exhibit with Zenobia Bailey. It is vibrant, it's beautiful. This is actually showing our Northwest Gallery, which is the main gallery. We have two galleries, Northwest and Pekar. Northwest is the larger space, and this show was called Aesthetics of Funk. Absolutely beautiful. We come in, we redo the hall for every show that comes in. So the next show that comes in, it'll look nothing like this room. The walls will be changed. There may be new walls added in, but we completely retrofit it to exactly what the artist needs.
Right. And we've got the next photo coming up right now. There we go.
Oh, this is from our our 2019 Kwanzaa celebration. So we celebrated Kujichagulia this year at NAAM, and we actually did a Kwanzaa celebration. We had children and families come in, actually go through the ceremonies of Kwanzaa, and we actually had Hiawatha D on site to do painting with them beforehand.
Right. So with Kwanzaa, definitely a Black cultural thing, event, experience. What other kind of cultural, uniquely Black things are you doing there? Something similar to a Kwanzaa?
Absolutely. So for Juneteenth this year, our executive director has come in hitting hard. She's partnered us with 5 other Black museums across the nation, and we did a huge Juneteenth celebration. It was virtual, of course, this year, but we've done that. We had a Malcolm X celebration this year. I believe you can actually still access all the documentation and films that we screened on our website. And I'm trying to think, what else do Black people celebrate? Because we celebrate it all.
I mean, in some neighborhoods, every day is. My mama said every day you wake up is a celebration.
So the event that actually made me want to go and work at NAAM was Black Santa. Mm-hmm. That is one of the busiest events that we have after King Day, which in itself is a huge event that we usually get about 2,500 to 3,000 people on site. Black Santa is my favorite. I like my Santa in J's. And that's how it is in there.
Santa rocking J's,
It's a true Black Santa, and it's really, we have an experience where kids can come in and have a Santa that looks like them and celebrate this very American holiday in a very Black way.
Right. And I mean, I'm definitely a big fan of blending our culture. I mean, bringing our swag out, so to speak. Do we have a problem here with this one? No, we're good. So you got me with the Santa with J's when we talked about that right there. Let's bring up the next photo. There we go.
So this is another piece that was in Zenobia Bailey's exhibition. She does a lot of work with textiles, so there were a lot of interactive events going on during this exhibit, so people could actually come in, do some work with fabrics, textiles, and this is just one of her exhibits that kind of puts on display her aesthetic of funk. Absolutely.
Right. And we've got one more here, and this is kind of something along the lines of we've been talking about over here. We've got the Krakens now coming into town. Of course, the T-Birds, they've been holding it down, for years, for decades here. But a lot of people didn't realize that there's actually a history of Black people or African Americans in hockey. And we played the trailer of Soul on Ice here not too long ago. But it looks like right up here, the Black Hockey History Tour.
Yes, so NAAM actually partnered with the NHL to bring their traveling Black Hockey Museum to NAAM. So they did a 4-day tour in Seattle, and we were one of their stops, the Saturday stop. It was beautiful. It was a way to, again, show people that Black people do play hockey. We do everything, and a lot of people don't know that. So NAAM is where we tell people, hey, this is what we do.
All right, fantastic. So we've given the audience here some context of who is NAAM, what does NAAM do, what's your vision and mission, and also we've highlighted some things, some exhibits that have come through there. Now, I wanted to transition with you as to a burning issue in the community is the current occupation out in front of the Northwest African American Museum by Omari Taher and his group right there. Let's just get into it. What's your position?
So NAAM, part of our culture, we are Black people, protest is part of the culture. And we recognize and we support that. But our position, we just want there to be an opening for communication. We want to be able to understand the full story and exactly where he's coming from and come to a reasonable solution for all of us. His one demand is really hand over the keys, and a lot of people don't know this, but NAAM doesn't own that building. So even if we wanted to, we don't have the right to hand over the keys to the building. We are tenants. So it's like, okay, you're saying you have this beef with us, but it's really about the building. So now the public is completely misled, believing that NAAM is, NAAM has stolen this space, basically. But no, we do not own the space. We just want to come to an understanding.
Well, taking it off logistics for a moment, building, who owns building, who's this and that. One of the biggest things, we've interviewed Omari now three times. That's why I thought it was important for the viewers, always our viewers at least. They really want to know. They want to hear from people. You know what I'm saying? It's neighborhood talk right here. So they want to know what's going on. But one of the things that Omari Taher is very adamant about is he doesn't view the Northwest African American Museum as a museum on the same caliber of when you talk about the Wing Loop Museum or the Scandinavian Museum or other museums in the Seattle. If we just keep it to Seattle, that it's lacking when you stack it up against other cultural museums in the city.
And he's entitled to that opinion, but I'm all about facts and data. Have you looked at all the programs that we do? Have you looked at all the partnerships we do and the way that we interact with the Black community? How are we aligning in those facets? Because I would say that we are on par, and we have partnerships with all of those museums. So I actually did speak with Mr. Garrett, and he was very welcoming to speak with me. He hasn't been so welcoming to the rest of our team, but we did speak. And his main thing, he told me, stop calling it a museum. And I said, okay, well, why? Tell me about what's going on with that. He said, you don't have enough space here to be a museum. And first of all, our executive director is the president of the Association of African American Museums, definitely a museum. And second of all, when you look at all African American museums, NAAM is not the smallest. So are we saying that we're going to just completely throw out a whole genre of museums because they don't have a certain square footage? I want to know, because we do great work with the space that we have. It's not as big as others, but we do a lot of work.
You touched on programming earlier. One of the things that Omari had brought up is that it doesn't feel that there's enough youth engagement programming, more that young people can come there to the museum. He said they can go to a genealogy computer, they can see an exhibit in the hallway, they could go to the gym. And what he's saying is that his grand vision of it is more of something where youth would get more out of the space. Since you talk about programs and programming, what exactly are youth getting out of the space right now?
So right now, we have a lot of programming for our youth because we don't have specific exhibits for the youth right now. We do have exhibits that were done by our youth, which is amazing in itself, but we have been working as a team to determine the best way to use the space and to make sure that it is for kids. There was a kids zone when I first got to NAAM. Had some instruments, had some books, has some coloring pages. It had some things that do engage the children, but our team really is thinking bigger and thinking through exactly how to make this space more interactive and open for children. But we have our youth curator program, so the students actually come in, they learn new skills. I think this cohort actually learned some graphic design. They did animation for their project, and it's months-long project, so they're engaged. We partner with UW to do Interrupting Privilege, so we're bringing in high school students and giving them a space where we can talk about basically how is whiteness affecting you in your spaces? How do we overcome this? And what can we do to make sure that your voices are heard? And making sure we're centering the youth's voices. So we do a lot of programming, and we definitely have our sights set on having physical things as well. But I think that the claim that we don't engage youth is baseless.
Right, and now you talked about communication. You said that you had a conversation. You also started this conversation saying that being black, you understand protesting, and clearly they're out there protesting. Been out there for quite a while now, maybe even a few months. But in some of the communication, and I don't know if it was NAAM's or Urban League or one of them though, the communication, the letter that went out to the public referred to Omari Garrett and his group as the trespassers. Do you really feel that those choice of words, especially if you're sending it out to the public and to the black community, is that really how we want to be referring to each other?
No, straight up, just no, we don't. And our team has talked long and hard about that, and we've really made a shift to make sure that we are making our communication something that we do all together, making sure that it's coming from us as a community. Like people who work at NAAM, a lot of them are from Seattle, and this is a community. So this is really difficult for people to have to reconcile with, okay, this is a place where I work, I believe in the work that we do, but this is my community, where I was born, where I was raised, the people I love. So we've definitely started having those conversations about, hey, this is how we want to communicate with our community, because this really didn't align with our values. I think it was kind of difficult at first when you've literally been, had your life threatened. How would you respond if someone told you you'd end up like Edwin T. Pratt? And so we're all working together to make sure that we really put together a message from our full community, from our full NAAM community.
Right. So are you saying there's credible threats made against your staff?
Absolutely, yes. Well, not our staff, no. Our staff has been good. It's more so our leadership. So executive director and president of our board of directors. And so those are things that they've been dealing with, and it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate because we really, our team actually last December had started talking about how do we want to update our museum, what kind of things do we want to add in here. And we did a walkthrough with the full team. And one of the things that we wanted to do was make sure that we bring in an exhibit that actually fully recognizes the occupiers, talks about their stories. Because when I first came in, I'm like, what? They were in here for 8 years? Like, how did that
was
go?
the longest, the previous occupation for people who might be watching here. that occupation by Omari Tahir 23 years ago was the longest occupation of a public building in America.
Absolutely.
And oddly enough, I went to elementary school there. Big shout out to elementary school teacher Barbara Nilsson. It was Summit K-12 when I was a kid. I went to school at that building. So even that as well. It's a lot of history that's there. How do you guys, how does this get resolved? Because the one thing for sure is that Omari Tahir, if there was ever to be an occupation, like I cover this occupation up on Capitol Hill, right? Because they're occupying the shelter there at the park. I was in CHOP the whole time, the occupation of Capitol Hill. But Omari Tahir occupied a building for a decade. So it's a different kind of dedication when you're talking about who's sitting out there in front of your museum. And in that sense, it's like, man, how does something like this get resolved? Are the tools there right now between these two sides to sit at the table and resolve it? Is there other stakeholders and trusted, honest brokers that come into this conversation? Like, what's the plan for resolution here?
So we are working with Urban League. They're the owners of the building. So we've been working really closely with them to try to resolve this. We're planning a healing circle. I don't know how that ends. We'll find out. But it's really just to at least start the conversation, have everyone come to the table, state their grievances, and make sure that they're heard. And depending on how that conversation goes, then you move to the next step and figure out, what can we do, what can't we do, what are the compromises. But yeah, the healing circle is the next step. And
I think for as a community member, I'm always happy to see that community is taking the lead. It's not like we're calling the sheriff for eviction or something like that. Hopefully things don't come to that. I think it's a good first step when people are able to communicate and try to. You gotta see where it goes, guys. At least try. We'll see what happens.
And and I know there've been a lot of reports that NAAM is calling the police on people. I'm like, okay, look here now. Let's speak about facts.
I think it was a resident or somebody else.
So there are people who live in the top 2 floors, and that's part of the Mr. Garrett's issue. He's like, this whole building should be a museum. We would love to have more space, but there are 36 families. This is affordable housing. They have tenants' rights now. So even if NAAM did decide to pack it up and go, these people have rights, they have families, they're confused. You're sitting in your house and all of a sudden there's an encampment out front. If you have people sitting in your front yard, you might call the police too.
It sounds like this is a much larger and entangled issue than just like you said with NAAM, because it's the Urban League, it's these other building owners and things like that, tenants. So that table might actually increase in size.
We definitely plan to include the tenants as well, because their lives have been affected by it. And I truly do not believe that the people who are living outside of NAAM are assaulting people or anything. But when you have an encampment, now it kind of draws a lot of other people from Seattle who see, hey, people are hanging out. This is where I'm going to come hang out. And then people start peopling. So.
Right. Well, before we get out of here, we're way over time today. Unfortunately, it was our fault, but it was a big news day yesterday. Yeah. We didn't see that coming, but so it was important that we talked about it. Want to leave with some positivity. So maybe you can tell me, and we've got an occupation going on right now out in front of NAAM, but before that occupation, you personally, what was it that, and you touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but what was it so special about NAAM that drew you in and has you so passionate in this position and talking about it?
I was running from white supremacy. Straight up. I came out here to work at Boeing. Loved my job, I really did, but there were so many other things involved with it. And I remember crying in the bathroom one day thinking, how will I will never be able to escape this. It's everywhere. And being with my people, we have our own issues just as a people, but I will never wonder when I'm called into the office if I'm being reprimanded because I'm a Black woman. And that weight off of my shoulders is huge. I'm an industrial engineer. I like to go where things are broken because now there's work to do. There are things to fix. There are processes to create. So I saw NAAM and I thought, wow, there's so much potential. I want to do this as my work. I'm always working in the community anyway, but I was like, man, if I could do that full time, that would be amazing. So it was maybe a year that I was kind of courting NAAM and kind of talking to them about coming in and getting to work. So.
Yeah, as they say sometimes, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
You just might get it. But you say you're an engineer and you like to fix things, and man, what a challenge in front of you. What a great opportunity.
It's amazing.
This is a great opportunity for you right here to be able to rise to the occasion on behalf of our community and find a solution here. And so definitely wishing you all the luck with that. And
thank you.
I hope that you'll continue to keep us in the loop.
I will. I had so many facts I was going to share with y'all, but I guess you're outside. I'm all about the facts.
So hold on, I'll give you 2 facts. You go ahead for it.
All right. So one of the claims I really want to address, I keep hearing Africans have culture and no money. We got money and no culture. And I said, who got money? I asked Mr. Garrett. I said, who has some money? He's like, black people. I said, no, sir. So if y'all didn't know, the median wealth of a black family in America is $3,500. The median wealth of a white family in America is $146,000. And we talk a lot about our $2 trillion buying power. Okay, the Latinx community has $3 trillion of buying power. White community has $77 trillion of buying power. So when we talk about $2 trillion, that number sounds big, but we don't ever compare to what else is going on out there. So it's like the question again came up about where do you get your funding? From where the money is. And then we pour it back into our community. So I just want to make that much clear to everyone out there. NAAM is for the community. And then this issue of culture, that's going to be my second fact. Thank you. My family, I've traced my family back to 1775 before America was recognized as an actual country. This is my country. This is my land. My family built this, and we've built amazing culture. Black people are the culture. We set the trends. So I think this idea that we have money and no culture, I really want to challenge that. So blues, jazz, gospel, funk, that's just music. Rock and roll, country, that's black people, that's black culture, black American culture. And we haven't even gotten into the culture of survival, the culture of protest, the culture of civil unrest, of fighting for your civil rights. That's black culture, and that's what NAAM centers. So come on out when we reopen and learn about it. And we're doing virtual programs still, even with our closure. So that was just like the one thing I really want our community to think about.
You would have been kicking yourself if you were
I would have.
I wish I would have said that when I was on air.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, how can people get up with NAAM?
You can follow us on social media, NAAMNW, NAAMNW, like Northwest, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the Northwest African American Museum. You can sign up for our newsletters. We always send out about what's going on. You can volunteer. We always need volunteers. I run the volunteer program as well, so don't tell me you signed up, because I'll see it if you did. So just engage with us. And even if you have qualms, just let us know. Tell us what the issues are. I can't fix what I don't know. Right. So I'm all about being informed. So tell me the backstory. I want to learn. I'm here to learn. So info@naamnw.org.
Getting you all the scoop. All right, Patrice Bell, Northwest African American Museum. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, the morning update show continues.
We're right here at East Precinct. It doesn't get any closer than this right now.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents.
As a small independent media company, we rely on the financial support of individuals and business members to stay on the front lines of the news that's important to you.
There's a lot going on. Are you ready? Ready to feel better, look better, be better, drink water, be ready for a pickup game. Insta-frame, to work hard towards your aim. Drink water, hydrate. Hydrate to invest in yourself. Cut down on sugar, invest in your health. Imagine the possibilities and reach your potential. Who knows what's next? Be ready, be hydrated.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, well, man, the people wanted to know something, so, you know, we got to get all the information from both sides of the issue right here.
Great job, Omari, man, always making sure that people can hear all of it, man.
I think, I mean, one of the best things I heard, I did learn some new stuff about NAAM today, but one of the best things I heard was that to hear Patrice say, man, the next steps with this is centered around communication. Yeah. And I think that a lot of community members on whoever on this issue, if you're on the NAAM side, so many sides these days. If you're on the NAAM side or if you're on the occupation side, I don't think either side wants to see like something escalated to police or sheriff. I think that either side wants people to talk and resolve and communicate. And so hopefully they'll reach resolution through communication.
Absolutely.
Right. Before we get out of here, we got a clip today. It's a short clip from the documentary, Many Rivers to Cross. And it talks about, man, it's just really interesting. It talks about trends like in the 60s and 70s and Black love and determination. Also some stuff about Soul Train and Don Cornelius, how ingenious he was in his programming and everything else. We'll take a look at this right here. It's called Many Rivers to Cross, about 3 minutes.
Wearing my natural gives me more pride within myself. Isn't it beautiful?
What are you?
I'm black and beautiful.
Black is Beautiful was an effort to sort of throw off the shackles of the way white supremacy constructed black bodies. They're not as intelligent, they're not human, they're not as beautiful, they're not valued. So to undo that, one has to directly attack that ideology.
Black is Beautiful came out of the Black Power movement.
Right on, brother.
But it quickly permeated the American cultural mainstream. Blackness, or soul, became the epitome of cool in popular films, music, and advertising. By 1969, there were black characters on 21 primetime TV shows. But more than any other program, the syndicated television show Soul Train, created and hosted by visionary entrepreneur Don Cornelius, helped spread the idea that black was beautiful. Soul Train brought black music, dancing, and fashion into homes across America. For African American youth, it was a revelation to see kids like themselves on national television.
Soul Train was pretty much the obsession in every household in my neighborhood. I guess you could say Soul Train was kind of the first non-minstrel based black entertainment that, you know, America really got.
And it was more than just music and dancing. Soul Train and its sponsors advertised products for black consumers in ways that appealed to their new pride and identity.
Don Cornelius used the commercials to educate and promote Afrocentricity, which was something that was absolutely not heard of.
There's one with Frederick Douglass.
And Frederick Douglass teaching you how to,
But my brother, you can't go out looking like that.
Well, Mr. Douglas, you know, times have changed. We wear the natural now.
You call that a natural? That's a mess.
Kids used to tease you by saying, you're African.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not. I'm gonna beat you. You know, that was the reason for a fight. Someone called me African. I'm beating somebody up. Don Cornelius, his master plan was to change the lives of black youth without them knowing it. I don't mean it lightly when I say that self-love was probably the most important lesson that was taught on the show.
So that's from the documentary, Many Rivers to Cross.
Ah, I love that. What he was just saying there, you know, self-love, man, self-love. And I'll bring it back to where we are today, to see these athletes. And my son has been playing ball since he was in second grade. So for me, I love that now he can see that there's a real convergence of people who are like utilizing their platform for good. Once again, man, it's just brilliant to see that, man. We're still crossing many rivers, my guy.
Man, still crossing many rivers. Man, that's many rivers to cross.
Right.
All right, so a few things here, bring everybody up to speed. So tomorrow, actually our producer, Jake Gravbrot, Jacob, he's out in Washington, D.C. right now, and he's hooking up with our correspondent, Julia Jesse, and they're doing some coverage out there on the 57th annual anniversary of the March on Washington. And so we'll be checking in with Jake tomorrow. And also Jake, he shot some documentary pieces. He was in Milwaukee a few weeks ago. He shot some stuff there, and we're gonna preview Jake's segment. He interviewed some local politicians there in Milwaukee. Sequena,
yeah.
I don't want to kill her name here, but she's on the school board and I think the city council there in Milwaukee.
She said one of the first, I think, black women to have dual position.
Well, she's the only one duly elected to the school board, elected to the council. So Jake spent some time with her, and you know, it's interesting to get some perspective here of what's going on in other parts of America. So we're gonna be premiering that tomorrow, actually during the morning update show. We're gonna be checking in with Julia Jesse from Seattle and out there in Washington D.C. and works in government in that ecosystem out there, checking in there. And then also, do you guys have a time for tomorrow night?
6:30.
So on 6:30 p.m. we've also got a special event right here. We've got an award ceremony that's going on in honor of the 57th anniversary. Well, actually, we've been doing it every year for a very long time. We're carrying that, broadcasting that. We got a new show. We got a lot of new shows starting next week as well. This will be interesting. I'm excited. And I think that the excitement around what we got going on over here is able to counterbalance the stuff that goes on out there in the streets. You know what I'm saying?
Give some balance, though.
Yeah, so tomorrow's going to be a very big day for us. Lots of new programming, a few new faces, and then, of course, an event, award show in the evening. So we're looking forward to it. You got anything?
No, man. Chats with Trey next month, you know?
Chats with Trey is coming back. All right, so until then, and actually, so the one last thing I'll say is I'm trying to get some of my colleagues together, and we're going to see if we can put something live on tonight with just people talking about our experiences, people in media trying to cover these protests, and what's occurring and what we're seeing out there. So make sure that you signed up for live alerts, because we'll probably just pop in with that. But until then, tomorrow, 11 a.m., we'll see you then. Peace.
Voice and sing, dealer than heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. blazing the rising sun.